As I was just telling Thomas before the camera started rolling, it's time yet again. How do I end up these situations?
You love them.
I love them. We're going to talk about another racing game, and I'm going to keep my spirits up because this is a racing game that a lot of people are looking forward to.
Yes.
And I've actually, to be honest, I really like Dirt 2. I play that. I have more than half of the achievements now.
I'm probably the most surprised guy right now.
And I'm going to actually, I think I'm going to play Dirt 3.
Ooh.
And of course, we're here to talk about Dirt 3.
Yes.
What's new, Pussycat?
Let's just start out by saying that Codemasters can do no wrong when it comes to car racing games, and they more or less continue that trend with Dirt 3.
Okay.
Of course, they have a huge backstory with the whole Colin McRae rally series, and at some point of time it turned into Colin McRae Dirt, and now just Dirt.
Yeah, because Colin McRae passed away.
Of course.
I never remember his name.
But what started out as, I think, a vision for a proper, like, realistic racing rally game has more or less turned into an arcade racer now with everything in it that can even be, like, in some strange way portrayed as a sort of spin-off rally. And that's also the formula for Dirt 3.
All right. Because one thing that I noticed when playing Dirt 2, and actually kept playing Dirt 2 for some reason, was that it was, compared to games like Gran Turismo, which I've never been able to get into, it was quite easy. It was a lot of driving fun. Yeah. And I don't even have a driver's license.
No, there is this tendency today that when you say an arcade racer, people sort of think of only Burnout, but I believe that Dirt, or at least the Dirt series, has been turned into a sort of arcade rally racer, and it really works. It's a game that most everyone can pick up and play, and they have actually made that even easier in Dirt 3. For some strange reason, they have gone away from the menu system that has sort of defined Codemasters racing games for the last couple of years, where, you know, the whole menu system is part of you going into a trailer or something like that, and you're in first person and you're, they've ditched that, and now you just have a menu, an insanely cool and just really nice menu, but nevertheless just a menu where you have your sponsors, you have your manager and everything in between talking in the background, so they're still there and you still feel like a person being talked to. But the races are much more straightforward to just get to.
Okay, so cool. How's, because this is something that racing game enthusiasts love to talk about. How's the car physics? How does the cars handle?
I believe that Codemasters for years now actually has been the best studio in the world at delivering and letting the players feel the rubber actually meeting the ground through the controller, or actually through a wheel as well. You always know where a car is and why it behaves the way it does when you play Codemasters racing games, and it's really the sort of lesson that most everyone else who's doing this kind of game should learn from. The controls are spot on, and when you crash, and you will crash a lot of times, Dirt 3, you know why, and 9 times out of 10 you will probably also realize that it's your fault and not actually the game's.
All right. So what's new when it comes to content?
Gymkhana, first and foremost.
This is a trick-based?
Yeah, for everyone who has not been following the rally world, it potentially could seem like Codemasters going out and just saying, yeah, we have to have a trick mode because that's the rage right now. It is a real thing from the racing world, and it is really popular right now. So basically, Gymkhana is this small track that has all these obstacles where you're supposed to do tricks, and it's all pre-planned, so you have to follow the plan. And the tricks can be like power sliding, 360s, going into really tight corners, and actually also doing 360 or driving through like small boxes that also give you points, jumps, everything in between. And you're able to combine it into combos, which of course deliver huge scores, but it's also timed most of the time. There is different variations in the game of the Gymkhana event.
And it's fun?
It is, but it's also highly frustrating because you really have to master the controls. And of course that depends on your skill, but I was cursing at the game. Not because it's bad or anything, just because I kind of sucked and I wanted to have the best medals. You're medaled in this sort of event. And I just can't let it go. And it gets insanely hard the further you get in the game. So it's really fun. Besides Gymkhana, it's more or less more the same. The events are, I think, almost all the same, but the thing is that this time around, night driving has been added, and also snow, and snow completely changes the game.
Okay, yeah. All right. So it seems like Codemasters actually once again delivered a really solid racing title.
Yeah, I don't know how they can keep doing it. They just mastered this sort of game. I mean, the F1 series is already really good in its first installment. The Race Driver Grid is probably, the sequel is probably one of the games I'm looking the most forward to. And the Dirt series, even though Rally has not really been my kind of game for a long time, is just amazing.
One thing early on when they started to hype Dirt 3, they released not screenshots, but kind of this is what we want Dirt 3 to look like. Did they succeed? Yes. If you remember those shots?
I do. I found them amazingly beautiful, especially because of the colors that they had chosen to portray. Yes. And the thing I need to say here is that we have companies like Epic, who's going out of the way to promote the Unreal Engine, and of course that's part of the business, so I get that. But we have a whole lot of companies who are screaming about the graphics engines and everything. And then we have Codemasters. And Codemasters have this ego engine that they have been developing for several years now, and they're not screaming about it. But I have the suspicion that the ego engine is probably one of the best engines on this current generation of consoles, because every time they make a new game with it, especially the racing games, they just look like out of this world. Dirt 3 is insanely good looking. I mean, it's everything from the lighting model, which is probably one of the best lighting models in any game today, to especially the weather physics. The water, the way it splashes on your screen, if you actually see it from inside the car, is the best water effects ever in a game. No question about it. The snow acts just like you would expect snow to do, and it actually obstructs your vision when you're driving behind another car, which kind of sounds basic, but in most other games it's just used as like a visual thing. It's not actually anything that affects the way you drive, and it does in this game. And in almost every corner you will just find amazing graphics. I did find a couple of places where the textures kind of seemed out of the place because they weren't as high resolution as you would have expected when you see all the other stuff, but it looks really good. And when I mentioned the graphics, I also need to mention the soundtrack, because the soundtrack, while not as insanely beautiful and amazing, is really, really good. It's mostly done of like low-key electronic music, like for instance from artists like Hudson Mohawk, and it just suits the game. It has to be said though, and that's probably my biggest and also one of my only critiques of the game, that the third game is not the jump in content that we had in previous installments. I mean, if you've been playing the second Dirt game, which also was just amazing, you will get a new experience, but you won't get the same amount of new content that you got in previous jumps in the series.